Craig Smoak out until next week. Paul Catalina, I'm David Smoak. Somebody asked, are you guys having Jason Scheer on today? And I mentioned, maybe not today. We'll see what happens, Arizona, if anything, over the next 3 or 4 days or weeks. And then all of a sudden, Jason Scheer, Wildcat Authority, with the story that the Pac-12, in fact, will be showing numbers, whatever that might be. And I think he has an idea from Wildcat Authority. Jason, thanks for your time. Whatever might that be, sir?
Well, there's a couple things that I think are going to be presented that I've heard are going to be presented. The first aspect of it is it's going to be heavily streaming. There is a possibility that it is all streaming, which would be Apple, and Apple would have the ability to sub-license games out to ESPN, and that would be something pitched to the Pac-12 as a possibility to gain more money. Overall, the starting value is going to be in the low 20s. I've heard it could be as low as $20 million. I wouldn't be surprised if it's like $22 billion. And then certain kind of like, let's call them escalators. Like if we get certain ratings packages, if we get certain subscriptions because of the Pac-12, those numbers would go up. And that's something that he'll likely pitch tomorrow.
So, Jason, if you are one of these teams in the Pac-12 that's been adamant, like Arizona has, we're not going to make any decisions until we see numbers, and the first numbers you see after a year, 13 months, are this low, what happens next?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question, and I think we're going to find out very quickly. I believe that there are schools that already know what is being presented. Robbins is on the executive committee, so I can't see him being surprised by any numbers that are presented tomorrow. And I think we're gonna find out soon. I'm not saying realignment and stuff like that is going to happen quickly because it never does. But if you're Arizona and you have an invite from the Big 12 and the first numbers that you see after a year are low and all streaming. I mean, Robbins has been on record as saying that he doesn't want it to be heavy streaming, that there needs to be a substantial linear concept, and other schools have as well. You're always going to have schools like Oregon State and Washington State that are basically going to sign whatever is put in front of them. But if you're a school like Arizona, ASU, Utah, you're kind of saying, okay, what other options are at the table? Because how much longer can we wait for another deal to be presented?
Jason, why today? Why not at big Pac-12 Media Days, if in fact you kind of wonder, was this known even then? Was it because they were delaying on purpose, they just felt they could tread water? Or do you feel like, my goodness, with Colorado's move, no matter who wants to make whatever comments about Colorado, they just, my God, let's do this, make it public?
Yeah, from what I understand, the way it worked out is after Colorado left, there was a Pac-12 meeting. It did not go well. The Pac-12 presidents basically say, you have to show us what you have. And part of it is the belief that the reason a deal has not been presented yet is because the deal was not good enough to present. And now that doesn't matter. The Pac-12 presidents have said, show us what you've got. We need an actual update, a term sheet that we can look at. So I don't necessarily think that this is George wanting to show them this deal as much as it's the Pac-12 presidents and ADs say, you know what? We got to see what's going on here. We need to see the numbers. You have until early next week.
Jason Scheer, Wildcat Authority, with us on 365 Sports. Do you feel, and you mentioned Robbins, and there's obviously a lot of smoke. You got to believe what you got to believe or you don't, but do you feel like this is just another nail in the coffin for Arizona and Pac-12?
Yeah, I mean, look, anything can happen with realignment, but Robbins has been very vocal in saying that he wants to see the numbers, and once he sees the numbers, they'll make a decision. And they're finally seeing the numbers. And this feels very similar to how Colorado played out, which is we're going to expect to see numbers at the next meeting. We hope so. We've asked for them, and then when they didn't get numbers, they said, you know what? We're gone. We need to go where there's stability. And so this feels a lot like that, where the numbers presented tomorrow won't be good enough. Robbins will say, hey, look, we waited for them to present numbers. We gave them a year, and now we're kind of moving on. And again, there's no guarantees. I'm not saying that'll definitely happen, but that's definitely the feeling around here is that it's kind of the process has started, basically.
So all that waiting around for extra bidders didn't make their money go up?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's funny because he said like a week ago, the longer we wait, and now he's not waiting long. If it's weird because, they didn't have a deal when Colorado left, which was only days ago. The meeting is taking place on a Tuesday early in the morning as opposed to like Friday. Like, it's very clear to me, at least, that this isn't a meeting that George necessarily wanted to have.
Yeah, it's almost like he just finally, you walked the plank, right?
Yeah, this is to me, this is a do or die meeting. Like, you know what? This is it. Like, if you don't have the members and other schools leave them, I don't think it's the end of the conference. I want to be clear. I think the Pac-12 is going to look. It's going to look different. I could see another 1-2 schools leaving, but the Pac-12 isn't going to go anywhere because you're always going to find schools that'll sign that type of deal. But this is like the next movement. We need to expand. We need to add schools. But in order to do that, we need to know where we are with the TV deals. We need to know which one of these schools is leaving or going. And that's kind of, with football season right around the corner, I just think it's at a big crossroads.
Is there any, the 20 million, whatever the number might be, is there anything that says this is what it is, take it or leave it, this is for 10 teams, 9 teams, 12 teams? Is there anything you think to that?
I have heard from a couple of people today that it's for 12 teams. That basically, the belief is that it's Apple, and Apple has said that they're willing to pay for up to 12 teams. And so that's part of it that I think, I've heard that George should get creative. Say, look, we're bringing in other teams, but if San Diego State or SMU or whatever will come in at half shares, you could still get a little bit more money than that 20 million. Now we're increasing it a couple million per school or whatever it may be. But, I think the goal of the Pac-12 is to remain, the Pac-12, to not go to 10 schools, to be 12, sign a deal and try to get stability through numbers.
Do you think that Arizona State always seemed to me like they wanted it, like at least at the beginning, thought, okay, well, the 2 Southern California schools are leaving. That could kind of be us. Now we could be the cool school that the SoCal kids go to in the Pac-12. Do you think this changes that for them, that they might want to head east as well?
It could. I mean, we'll have to see what happens tomorrow in the meeting and when the numbers are finally presented. But I know that up until this point, they have not been as receptive as Arizona. Arizona has very clearly been more receptive. I think there's less of an emphasis on sports with ASU school president. It wouldn't surprise me if all of a sudden it's kind of a wake-up call and Robbins meet with Crow, the ASU president, says, look, you got to make this move whether you want to or not. That wouldn't surprise me at all, but it would have to take a kind of a switch of momentum that we've seen throughout this whole cycle.
So if it has to be a certain number, and I know you got to go, Jason, and we appreciate you jumping on as always, but let's say it is 12. They're now at 9, right, with Colorado leaving. For every team they lose, it's almost like they have to add 2 to get to 12. Because you lose one and then you gain one. They got to add. They can't afford to lose. They have to add. Man, you just wonder, okay, everyone's been saying this is what they're loyal to. We'll find out.
Yeah, I mean, that's just where it's at, I think. You can't drag this on because if schools leave, you need to start with the expansion process. This isn't a quick process. So if you're at the Pac-12, you need to invite SMU. You need to invite San Diego State or Rice or whoever it's going to be. And if you say, we'll do it in 3 or 4 months, there's scheduling that needs to be done. There's other factors in this. It's not as simple as, making a phone call. And so that's why I feel like tomorrow's meeting it's it. Like, we're going to know, and I'm not saying tomorrow's meeting goes poorly. Arizona's in the Big 12 on Wednesday. I don't think that's how it'll play out. But I think we're going to know one way or another the future of the conference tomorrow.
Hey, Jason, great stuff. We appreciate it. Jason Scheer with the reporting earlier, with the tweets we put up, and also